as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. And he says this, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and your mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with you, and you may live long on the earth. You parents do not provoke, or you fathers do not provoke your children to wrath. Proverbs 24, I think, or 22 says that raise your children the ways of the Lord, and when they're old they shall not depart. Women, you cannot ignore the Scripture and expect to have a good and a healthy and a balanced home. You can't. The marriage is evolving. And that's what we're being taught, that the marriage is evolving and that submission to the husband is that's old news. That's Mr. Allgood and Pastor Moreland. That's third generation and the generation before. Have you not heard that we are in a new generation and those rules no longer apply? We've been liberated and educated, and we're not going to take the old ways anymore. And man, you've also been educated. And what bothers me about these young people, I'm talking anybody younger than me, and that's a pretty wide span there, is that not only are women buying into the fact that they're not supposed to be submissive, but the husbands are buying into the fact that they don't have to be the leaders of the home. And they're fitting very nicely in that. We see a lot of men today that are AWO well. By the way, if you don't know what that means absent without leave. Now, I don't have to love my wife the way that the Bible talks about. Now, we're in a new generation. Have you not heard? Where you been hanging out at? The idea of being the leader of the family is also back in the chain, and I don't want to do it, so let the wife take the lead. We don't have to, as husbands and wives, model for our children what a marriage is to be. Everything is good. Our kids are getting it. My question is just exactly what are they getting? What is it that they're getting? The husband and wife are in rebellion against God in too many families. That divorce is an option today, by the way. Let's get married, and if it doesn't work, we can always get a divorce. It's no big deal. That's an option. If your marriage is messed up, your children will be messed up. Did you hear what I said? If your marriage is messed up, your children are going to be messed up. The other day, Pastor Rick and I are having a conversation because he is upset, I can tell you. He's brokenhearted. See, I get to see parts of him that you don't get to see. I get to see the emotion that he's experienced when he's trying to explain about some of the young people in his youth group that are coming from troubled families and the problems that it's creating. I can tell you, I stood at his door and wept. Wept at seeing these young people have to endure and experience the things that God never intended for them to have to endure and experience. Listen, I know that there's some divorces justified. I know that. Listen, I've been around for a long time. In fact, that preacher last week, I don't remember what his name was. I'm trying not to after he introduced me being 70 years old. Told me it's not a happy birthday when you're 70. Happy birthdays when you're 18. I'll tell you the reason why that affected. The reason why. That I stood in the door of Pastor Rick's office and wept. Is because that I know what those young people are experiencing. I know how it feels to experience absolute hopelessness. I know what that's like. How do I know that? From all the years of experience? No, because I experienced it as a kid. Remember when I was 14 years old, my parents divorced. And I don't know about you adults whether your parents divorced when you were young. And my mom was justified, by the way, because there are times when they can't be saved. I understand that. I know that. But I quit high school as a freshman. And I was essentially on the street for 2 years. And I was out of control. Totally out of control. And I'm not going to tell you, I don't have to go into detail to tell you, what a 14, 15, and 16-year-old kid is doing on the street when they're out of control. I don't need to share it with you. I don't need to share that. Train up your child in the way that he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. By the way, those are not instructions to the church. Those are instructions to parents. And all that Pastor Rick and Pastor Warren and other people that are involved here, all we do is that we back up the very things that you teach at home. We reaffirm those truths. Because it's not our responsibility to be the front line here. It's the parents' responsibility to teach and to train the children. Too many of our children are being neglected. They're not being taught. When young people leave church, how many times have you heard this, or leave home? They leave church, and why do you believe that's true? I would have traded virtually everything I ever had when I was 14 years old if I'd had a family that would have taken me to church, that would have seemingly cared. And I can tell you as a parent, the day I became a Christian, that has never been neglected in my 70 years. I have a responsibility to my children. It's a God-ordained and God-instructed responsibility that we have as parents to our children. And young people, you ones that just had babies, please listen to this message. Please listen to this message. The world is not their home. They won't find refuge in the world. They'll find refuge first in their family. So we see that science has come along, and they said that the book of Genesis is hokey pokey. It is not true. I remember in high school, I was actually teaching them, opened a science book, and the very first in the forward introduction, it said that evolution is a theory. And thereafter, right after that page, they began teaching it as a fact. Am I right, Brother Rick? They may even be teaching today that it's a fact. And by the way, it is not a fact. In fact, we're finding that science is falling out amongst themselves. And you know what they're falling out about? About evolution and Big Bang. There's too many scientists standing up saying, by the way, the facts don't bear it out. And that doesn't mean that they're rushing to Christ and to the church. But what they are saying, and there's a lot of legitimate, well-educated science just as great, just as smart as the ones that are saying that evolution is true, the Big Bang theory is true, and these other scientists stand up and say that it is not because the facts don't bear it out. It is a theory. It is a philosophy. It is not a science. And so the prevailing thing, and I would doubt that in a few years you're going to see more so than you've ever seen before, is that there's intelligent design behind everything. Walk out here into nature and look at that and tell me that that evolved for nothing. When I was an atheist, I was in Canada fishing. I was 28 years old. And I'd fall into a lake. Bill Hennings. By the way, Bill, don't try to walk in a canoe. You know it doesn't work. Just walking in a canoe. Don't do it. It doesn't work. So Bill, out trying to retrieve his most favorite lure, ends up in the water. So being the good friend that I am, he empties the canoe out. I said, here, let me get it for you. Well, being the good friend that he is, he gets me in the water. So Bill and I didn't know it. But that day that happened, that was one of the that was perhaps, up to that point, the greatest event that we ever experienced was getting wet in a lake in Canada. And you say, how? Because I came out onto the island and Bill was on one side, stripped down, and I was on the other side. I don't know what he was doing, but I was sitting there and I began looking at the beautiful water and the trees. I'd been stationed in the Army in Alaska for 2 years, but I never saw beauty like I saw it that day. Romans chapter 1 says that God reveals himself through nature. And God began revealing himself, and I thought, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is a God. And I recognized for the first time the beauty of creation. The very first time. But we're making our way up the ladder of evolution here in terms of Satan's design for things. He's after our country because he wants the evangelism. He wants the heart for the world that the people of the Church of the United States has. He wants that stopped. And so how does he stop that? Well, he's very strategic. He goes after the family first. Why does he go after the family? Because the family is the bedrock of the church. And the church is the messenger of Jesus Christ to take the lost and the good news to the lost world. And the church in this country, and we've heard it time and time again, is in major decline in the United States. When Pastor John left here, he left and went to a church out in Colorado. And they were looking for somebody that could stop the bleeding in the church out there. And he responded to that. So I look at it as we got a nice young new pastor here and a young pastor out there. We're going to expand the kingdom is what we're going to do. The church is in decline because the family is in decline. The family is the foundation of the church. You take the family away, you destroy the family, you destroy the church. But we can stop it. Recently, Rebecca, a reporter for the Mokena Messenger, came into our church to talk with our young pastor, Rick. I keep calling him young. He's not that young, but he's a lot younger than I am. I mean, he's not a kid. He's not a teenager. How old are you, Brother Rick?
Not 70. 41.
He's a smart one, too. Last night he said he was going to go to a retirement party, and I said, "Is it yours?" And he said, "No, it's yours. It turned out invited." But she came into Pastor Rick's office and she asked him a question. What will separate Grace Fellowship Church from the other churches of this area? And Pastor Rick responded by saying, "I don't know, because I haven't been in the other churches. I haven't visited all of them. But I know that by developing strong families in our church, we will develop a strong church that in turn will impact not only this community, but the world for the cause of Jesus Christ." That was his response. Strong families. Strong families. Our church will never be stronger than what our families are. So how can we do this? Well, first of all, I know that there's divorced people in here. I know that. By the way, this is not a condemnation for that. Don't mistake me. That's not a condemnation. Those things happen. The Bible gives instructions sometimes that they should happen. I understand that. But listen, as a parent, whether you're a single parent or whether you're a parent, you're still in a position, if you have children, to guard them like a hen does over a flock of chickens. Make sure that they're being taught about Christ and about his church. The Bible says, raise your children. Raise them. And you have this absolute promise of Scripture when it says, raise your children in the ways of the Lord, and when they're old, they will not depart. That's a very promise of God. If you honor me, your children will honor me. Some of you might say it's too late. It is never too late as long as you're breathing. Never too late. Would I like to go back and do some things differently? Who would? You know, just being human sometimes is just to be a crazy fool sometimes. We have to do that. But get this right. I wish I could take the pain of some of your children. I would do it. So with our young pastor, we take it as we could. We can only help. We can only try to put back some pieces. That's all we can do. So mom, if you're single, dad, if you're single, and parents who are warring in their marriage, please come together. Please put aside those differences. Please be willing to forgive one another and restore that marriage and become one flesh as God has instructed us to do. Please be willing to do that. You've got children. And by the way, they're watching everything. I had somebody tell me not too long ago, kids said they're happy with it. I said, that's ridiculous. They're not okay with it. They're not happy with it. So if you're having a struggle, if you don't exactly know what direction, Brother Rick. Come on, let you have it.
Worship team's going to make their way up here. Can you guys hear me? Worship team's going to make their way up here. They're going to play a song for us today as we close out. We're just going to open this up to anybody who wants to participate. Men in particular, this is going to be a little bit strange. You don't have to do it. I'm going to come right up here and I'm going to sing this song because the lyrics to this song say, Lord, I need you. Every hour, every day, I need you. You're going to come up here and sing with us. Come on up. Ladies, you're invited too. But gentlemen, sometimes it requires us to step out, to do the thing that feels awkward or weird, to invite God to come in and be a part of what we're doing. So I'll be right here. You're welcome to come up.